everybody, and welcome to a little bit of a different episode of Film Seizure this time around. Um, we'll talk a little bit more about that, exactly what we're doing here with these two films in just a moment. But first, I am Jeff Arbuckle, joined as always by Mr. Jason Oliver. Jason, how's it going?
Hello. Hello.
You're coming in
doing my AI robot voice, but
well. I mean, you're definitely coming in with some. What's the name of the piece that always plays at the beginning?
yeah,
Yeah.
I can never pronounce it. The
Oh, I mean,
Strassel Bizzleblurk or Blurk.
I mean, Chuck, can you believe it? Jason can't pronounce something.
I can't pronounce something.
No, Jeff, I'm afraid I can't believe that.
Hey, it's Chuck 9000. Chuck, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So we are talking about two movies, but maybe not in the way that we normally would. So this month has been all science fiction-y, much to the surprise of Jason and I, after Chuck admitted he doesn't like sci-fi.
I said I'm not huge
Okay,
on
fair.
sci-fi. I'm
Fair.
not huge on sci-fi. And I know you're making a joke, but challenging myself to watch more of these things gives me
Well,
a
that's-
broader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and none of the movies that we had this month were, like the Star Trek, Star Wars, the action sci-fi stuff, right? This is more like, this is real sci-fi.
Right. With the
Yeah.
exception of maybe one of the movies we're talking about today.
Well, yeah, we'll get there, but
Yeah.
so I think it's impossible to have a show where you talk about like particularly good quality things without eventually talking about 2001. And I think also, Jason, you and I had talked about talking about 2010 at some point too. I mean, I think that was an early on an early list somewhere. And and this was one of those things where it's like, well, we can talk about these movies. I don't think we necessarily need to talk about these movies in the way that we normally talk about these movies, right? Where we, go through beat by beat. It's for one of the movies, it's not as easy to, it's like because there's another way to talk about it. And I think that's probably how we're going to look at it. It's because 2001 is a movie that gets often talked about. It gets often taught in film classes and in particularly and certainly in a technical format. But it's also it's a movie that is, I think what most people would agree what makes 2001 so special is that I think it just makes you think about things, right? It makes you come to all sorts of different thoughts and ideas. And I don't think that there is one truly all the way through from minute one through minute, whatever, 136 or whatever it is, of everybody has the exact same opinion of exactly what's going on. I think it's so wide open that people, it's a movie that not only makes you think about things, but it makes you feel things too.
Not only that, but if you put it in the context of when it was made, it's an astonishing film.
My God. I mean,
that it was made in 1968, will blow me away forever.
Yeah, I mean, that was just when it was released. It's probably more like a lot of those effects were created in like 66 and 67.
Yeah.
Even earlier.
Yeah, we have a movie called Fly Me to the Moon now because of that, right? Because of how good this movie looks.
Yeah. It's a movie I kind of want to see. But anyway.
Wait, what? What are you talking about?
There's like a comedy drama.
Yeah, the fake moon landing movie.
Yeah, it was
produced the moon landing on a set.
This Scarlett Johansson and
think that should happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's funny that Kubrick gets a lot of credit, but Douglas Trumbull doesn't get nearly enough, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if anyone's going to stage a moon landing, it's going to be Douglas Trumbull, not Stanley Kubrick, right?
Yeah, I don't even think the new movie is like fake person doing it too. It's not like a send up to anyone that I'm aware of.
But there's stuff in that like Room 237 documentary that Jeff hates.
Oh my God.
That is all about the hidden meaning of The Shining, and there's a whole segment of that ties into the moon landing, Kubrick's involvement, and him trying to tell people that he staged.
Oh yeah, I remember that
with subtext in The Shining. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. Let me clear something up here, Jason. I don't hate the movie. The movie itself is fascinating.
Yeah.
I hate the people that the movie is about.
Yeah.
Room 237, not 2001. I like the people in 2001.
Right. I like Room 237 from its purely anthropological value.
Man, oh man, but I can only take so much of that for so long. And
Sure.
that's a movie I have to watch in segments. I can't.
Well, good for you that it's made into segments, so you can do that.
Fair enough.
As is 2001. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. I mean, it's Dawn of Man and then all the way to Jupiter and the Infinite.
Yeah, with an intermission.
With an intermission. Yeah.
With an intermission.
But no, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about like what this movie looks like, especially on 4K, as Jason and I.
Oh my God.
I mean, it looks like my TV looked like a window to space.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine because the Blu-ray is stunning.
Yeah,
like it truly is stunning. So,
yeah, the Blu-ray release is was and is still one of the greatest Blu-rays I've ever seen, and then the 4K like completely surpasses it. It's just God, the blacks and the contrasts are just it's stunning. It is like a doorway into space, like Jeff said. It's like looking in the black of space with like the stars and
with the most realistic look of the moon I have ever seen in a movie, like to this day.
Which is weird because a lot of upconvert, right? You're upconverting the film, and then you start to see the flaws. And this movie apparently looks better in every.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of that is that it was shot in 70 millimeter, also.
Oh, that's that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
So even 4K UHD hasn't quite even caught up to its 70 millimeter.
Is that 8K
potential?
Then
potential. It would be, I think, 8 to 12K, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I know that I believe when I go to when I do the Dolby Auditorium at the theater, I think that's 8K.
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I know that like when it's black, it looks like nothing is on. Like it is black. But like this, I mean, like I mean, just there's a couple of shots in this movie where it's like they're flying toward the moon, and I'm like, am I looking at it through like the Webb telescope or something?
Is this NASA video?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's insane how perfect that now. Not everything is perfect. I mean, the Earth is too big in the sky of the moon, but I don't care.
But
I
those
don't
shots
care.
are just like
I don't care. They're so good.
They're magnificent. They're just like awe-striking shots. Yeah. It really does hammer home kind of like that immensity of these heavenly bodies, right?
Right.
And like sort of like kind of what Contact was attempting to do or did do with that opening shot, right? Like it is just the massive quality of space and the things in it are just they dwarf any concept that we can really imagine.
I think, I mean, it's the one thing about space that's so.
It's pretty scary up there.
It's pretty scary. It's pretty scary, right? Because it forces
and no
us.
one hears you scream up there.
Yeah, nobody hears you scream. Space be scary, yo, and all that good stuff. But like, I mean, people talk about going up into just basically low orbit and getting a whole new perspective on what it means to exist, you know? I mean, hell, he came back down from that, and William Shatner was in tears.
Well, they had that
over what he saw.
They had that Red Bull jump like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe longer ago, where the guy, I don't know why I called it the Red Bull jump, but there was a guy like super high in the atmosphere and dropped to Earth, like from this little station thing. I was like, holy shit. Yeah, the free fall. I was like, holy shit. Like, that's not even near perspective you get from out there.
But you're
crazy.
probably
you're the nuttiest thing. Yeah.
I mean, you're probably close enough to see the curvature, right?
I probably
saw Ludacris and
and Tyrese
up there. Yeah.
They waved to each other as they floated by.
They're still orbiting in their pod.
Take that, Stanley Kubrick. But no, I think, I mean, like, for still to this day, there's a part of me, because I mean, like, I saw this movie way too young to comprehend anything the first time. And I always, and to this day, I still kind of almost classify this movie as partly horror. Like there is a dread sense to it.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there's an unknown antagonist. Unknown meaning
there's kind of two antagonists if you think about the unknown as an antagonist. Yeah.
Yeah, the unknown antagonist, and then the on-prem antagonist, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yep.
And both of them have abilities beyond what the person dealing with it at the time has the ability to defend against. If that makes sense.
Right.
It's like, I mean, poor Frank can't defend against Hal taking over the little pod and bodying him out into space, into infinity.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm curious. I assume we'll talk about this, right? But one of the major factors in this movie is very topical now, which is AI, right?
Yeah.
Obviously very topical now. And the evolution of AI.
Yep.
As well as the evolution of humans.
Yep.
All of which is, I mean, that's all in one movie and also covered in both movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Is that the central conflict in this movie, in your opinion, or is it ancillary thing? Like, it's vastly fascinating to me that there's an AI actively, I don't know if it's trying to stop human evolution. Like, I don't even really know what Hal's objective is necessarily, or if he has one, but it's fascinating, right? Because
I think we'll talk about that, because I always kind of took it as two things. One, that Hal kind of gets affected by the monolith, but probably more accurately, it's got a very, very strict programming from Floyd. That supersedes all other logic that he has, which is you have to get to this Lagrange point between where the monolith is.
Wouldn't that have been much better though? Like, I don't even know if I looked at it this way, but I did not like the explanation of Hal's breakdown in 2010. Like, why he did what he did, because he was getting conflicting orders. And we're talking about both movies, right?
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
He was given conflicting orders, and that what caused him to make the decisions that he made.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It felt kind of flat to me.
It seems a little convenient.
There's so much there. Like, if they said the monolith impacted the AI too, that would be interesting.
That would be very interesting. And that's the way I always interpreted the first movie.
Yeah. And that I look at it almost like this monolith is so powerful, is so like and the AI is so advanced that it's practically a living thing. And certainly Dr. Chandra treats it as a living thing.
Mm-hmm.
The way he talks to Hal and Sal it's like he has deep reverence for them.
But it almost feels like they dumbed down the AI in the second movie. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, a little bit. Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, as much as I find the explanation for Hal's malfunction to be contrived, I really do enjoy Hal's redemptive arc in the second movie.
Yeah, it's cool.
Like in his relationship with Chandra, and that whole scene where Chandra has been told to lie, but ultimately realizes that he can't, and the best way forward is to tell the truth, and that Hal can comprehend
that he's going to die,
and is willing to sacrifice himself or himself or whatever. Yeah, I mean it's kind of poignant.
Yeah,
it is poignant, but Hal doesn't even remember what he did.
No, and
that's first movie to have redemption.
That's true. That's true.
But it's which then I think does point a little bit more toward the monolith did have an effect on him.
I guess.
Because instead, like in this, they basically just plugged him back in, right? Like it's like they did the turn on and off thing, and he's all back to normal now. But what I was going to say was, I think it should be noted that 2001, while co-written by Arthur C. Clarke, was released before Arthur C. Clarke wrote the novel.
Yeah.
And 2010 and everything afterwards is Arthur C. Clarke's baby.
Yeah.
And there's a difference there. I mean, I'm obviously not going to say Arthur C. Clarke is not up to snuff with Stanley Kubrick. I'm not going to say that. That's ridiculous.
There's a harder science at play.
There's a difference. Yes.
Yeah. Where 2001 is more transcendent. It's more about a lot of ways about the spiritual and its relationship with science that we don't understand. I mean, it's got Contact took a lot. Contact took a lot from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
And 2010,
and 2010, I agree.
Yeah.
But that is very much at play in 2001. I mean, people who saw 2001 had spiritual experiences, right? Like there is very much an intermingling of the vastness of space and the unknown of space and equating that to something divine, right? You can take a lot of spiritual feelings and ideas away from 2001. But then 2010.
The sequel, 2002.
I think tries to carry along some of that idea. It's certainly just as enigmatic, I feel, at the end as 2001 is. But definitely, but kind of imbues it with a harder science, right? I mean, we're talking about like really complicated theoretical like space maneuvers and stuff happening in 2010 that kind of give it more of like a, I don't even want to say, maybe like a Star Trek vibe in a way, right? And then of course it's playing on like real, like present day Soviet tensions, right? Which obviously didn't actually.
No, it wasn't really. It really wasn't Soviet versus America. It was Arthur C. Clarke versus Stanley Kubrick. That was who's on the cover of that magazine.
Yeah, and honestly, like I think that's that.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? It's meta in a way.
Kubrick didn't care for 2010, and I don't think Arthur C. Clarke ultimately really liked a lot of 2001, right?
Yeah.
So they were at odds. But they both got to make the movie they wanted to make, and yeah, I mean, one is a masterpiece and one isn't. But 2010 is still pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So is Arthur C. Clarke America? Did he create the blockade? Did he?
So yeah, Arthur C. Clarke is depicted as the American president, and Kubrick is the Russian president.
Yeah.
Or premier. Yeah.
Okay.
On that cover, whatever it was, Time or whatever it was. Yeah.
That makes sense given the story.
Yeah. Nice meta. Yeah. I mean, right. I mean, but like And I do know, like, man, 25 years ago or whatever, um, Tom Hanks did get the blessing to do Odysseys 3 and 4.
Oh man,
What years were those, by the way?
2061 and 3001.
3000, yeah, was the last one.
I was wondering if it was all binary. I was going to look it up because 01, 10,
Yeah.
but 61 would throw a wrench in that.
Yeah, 61 is really interesting.
Wait, did you read it?
Yes, I did.
Wow, this is a book you
Jeff.
read?
Well, I was in high school. I had to read a book. I'm like, I'm going to read the third
crap.
Odyssey.
This is like the third book we've uncovered you've read.
I know.
Dracula was a book I
Planet
read.
of the Apes.
Planet of the
You read
Apes,
Planet of the Apes, yeah.
2061.
2061. Wow. Okay.
Jeff. That's
I know,
some words he read.
I know. No pictures in any of them. But no, like, yeah, I mean, because it starts with what's the first thing humans do? Try to fucking go to Europa. The one thing they're not supposed to do.
Of course.
Makes
Of
sense.
course. Yeah, and they get swatted away like flies constantly.
Just can't help ourselves. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I still, to this day, I still feel a sense of smallness, a little bit scared watching. I mean, and I get a little bit of that in 2010 also.
Definitely.
I mean, because the one thing about 2001 is it feels so open because you spend so many shots out of the of space, whereas 2010 all the shots are almost inside the spaceship, and the Leonov is pretty cramped, and it makes me think of Alien in a way.
Yeah.
Well, plus you have Helen Mirren, who looks like she would have been on the like Alien.
Yeah, she is given a little Veronica Cartwright.
Yeah. Thank you for connecting that dot.
Yeah.
I do have a question because there's obviously the through line in this movie, or the monoliths, right, or obelisks, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
In this movie, to me, having only seen, besides a few scenes that I remember in 2010, 2001, and knowing that story mostly, it just represents human evolution, right?
It's kind of like Prometheus.
That moment in time where humans evolve.
Yep. Being presented with knowledge. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, being presented with knowledge makes 2010 make sense too, right? Because they have the knowledge of whatever kind of travel you want to call that now, right? We've been given the blueprints to space.
New worlds. Yeah, new worlds.
Basically, all these worlds are yours.
Explore them together. Yeah, that's the other thing about 2061 and 3001, because now there's a new sun basically in the solar system. It allows for extra solar system travel, so they are able to leave our solar system. So that was another jump in knowledge and evolution. Yeah,
Gotcha.
Which this all reminds me so much of Contact as well, right?
Yeah.
Like small steps, right? These little evolutionary leaps, and who knows like how long we've been fed those along the way, right?
Right.
Yeah.
This is just a broader scale, like, or more people can see it.
yeah,
Right.
And then even in the at the end of 2010, I mean, I don't think it's a mistake to just jump right to that.
No. This is just a conversation as a whole.
It's very much like, oh, now that there's this new sun in the sky, there's two suns. Now that there's another planet in our solar system that is going to start to experience its evolution, right? So it's like these building blocks that are being placed, and that to me is kind of where 2001 gets almost 2001 and 2 get a little bit spiritual, right? Like biblical in a way. Like this is the story of creation, but instead of being in 7 days, it's over like billions of years, right? It's evolution.
Europa evolves much faster.
Well, yeah, it sure does. It sure does.
The way that Schneider, like, I can't remember the character name. I apologize. Like Haywood Floyd, and he's the doctor from the first movie as well.
William Sylvester played him in the first one.
Yeah. The way he describes it at the end is very like faith-based almost. Like,
like, or two people come together and meet and talk about the experience and learn from each other. It does come like the religious traveler, or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which I think is just an interesting way of viewing. If let's say there is a higher power, there is a all guiding being, right? Call it God, call it whatever you want. It's an interesting idea that being is still creating, right?
Right.
We're not. He didn't just.
We're not stagnant.
He didn't just rest on the seventh day and then let us be. This being is still creating and is actively participating, even now in our evolution.
So, Chuck, I want to go back real quick. Something you had alluded to.
Sure.
So this was the first time you saw 2010.
Pretty sure. Yes. I remember like the hair combing, that scene, but I don't know if I've been seeing that scene in like some kind of compilation or something. So yes, it's the first time I remember sitting down, paying strict attention and watching it, if that answers your question.
Yeah. So, but did you know how it ended?
I did not. I had no idea.
Okay. That's interesting. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. So, yeah. So, you talked about like the hair brushing. So like, the David Bowman is the main guy in the first 2001. Although, to be honest with you, that's even cut up in certain ways too, where it's like, we begin with the pre-human, like the first real human evolutionary step of becoming the dominant species,
grabbing tools or whatever.
Right? Because like, even if you think about it, it's like that very opening shot where like all of our pets are like zeroed in on the TV because of the sounds and the actions and the animals on the also very rare that you see a movie with tappers in it. The little snout-nosed four-legged creatures that.
Oh, I didn't know how that was pronounced.
Yeah, tapper. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
No, that's what
Gregory Hines comes across the screen. You're thinking of Enemy Mine, bro.
I was trying to make a Bush Baby joke, but it was kind of like ill-placed.
Yeah.
Dude, when they said Bush Baby, I looked up. I'm like, wait, what do they mean by Bush Baby? Like, I didn't even know.
It's like
those little cute little wide-eyed apes or simians.
I looked it up.
They're little adorable, little tiny.
Doesn't it sound a bit
derogatory?
it sounds
a little racist.
It totally does. It totally does. Yeah. Which is when you said Gregory Hines, I was trying not to be like, like tap into any sort of. Yeah, exactly. I wasn't trying to tap into any kind of latent racism. I was definitely tapping into that pun.
Oh my god. That was good.
But what I was saying about that opening scene is that, this is the first time I was kind of watching it intently because my cat was watching it intently. I'm like, what is it that he's into here? But like, one of the things I really kind of recognized for the first time was that, and I don't know if you guys spotted this or were looking this close at it, but like, it seems as though the ones that are pushing the tappers away, they're trying to like eat at the little brushes that they're eating from, they're doing fine. Like, they're already beginning an arc towards evolution. The one that was by itself and kind of more meek was the one that was, as I put it, sucker punched by the leopard and like messed up. It was the ones that were more aggressive were the ones that were basically ruling the veld, if you will,
I think
in this area.
Yeah, if you go into this movie like not knowing that it's about evolution, I think you might miss that.
Yeah.
But there are signs of evolution with these creatures prior to the monolith, right? Like you said, smacking the tappers away and saying, "That's my shit, bro."
Yeah.
You don't touch it. And then the little altercation over the water hole.
Yeah.
And they don't exactly know what to do on either side, really. It's like make the most noises until someone realizes they can carry a weapon into the fray. I assume that's the group that found the monolith, right? It has to be the group that found the monolith.
Which is interesting to me because it's speaking to some sort of human nature. Like we're being given these great gifts of knowledge.
Yeah, what do we do with it?
What do we do with
them into weapons?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're killing, breaking shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of looked at in Oppenheimer and other movies about those moments in history where we've taken great knowledge and destroyed shit with it.
It's kind of like the whole third act of the Abyss, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
No, that's fine. No, I mean, really, I was just kind of at the end of my point. I do like that our main ape man actually has a name. He's the Moon Watcher.
The Moon Watcher.
The Moon Watcher. He's the one he's the first one.
Watcher. He's the Moon Watcher. That's dumb.
Yeah, that would have been an 80s commercial for something. Yeah.
Oh God.
But no, he was the one who first approached and touched the monolith, and then he is the one who uses the femur for the first
Makes
time.
sense. Yeah.
And
He's the first one that's given
gives us one of the greatest shots in cinema history.
Yep, bone
Thanks,
to thanks, Moonwatcher. Bone to a nuclear launch device, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In credit to how good this movie looks, which we talked about earlier, even my oldest, Sarah, was watching this with me. Quite an eventful experience for her, I think.
Yeah, I want to hear a little bit more about this.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'll tell you more a little later, but she was like, this looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like even the apes, like the can I call them apes? Are they actually?
Yeah,
apes?
they're ape men. They're the missing link. Yeah.
Yeah. Even they looked good in this resolution. In like you almost
they
can't
look
tell.
real. Yeah. I mean, they look so good that when they have the real like baby chimp that is their baby, it's like that. All of this still looks right. It all still looks right.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, so like, but the one thing that immediately follows the shot of the nuclear launcher in space is that, the big classical suite of, well, here's other progress. It's like, it's kind of like you getting the good with the bad, and that wonderful wheel structure that's out there in space.
Right.
I do like that there is nothing in 2001 aside from the Dawn of Man scene that actually takes place terrestrially on Earth.
Right. Yeah.
It's like after that scene, we're done. We're in space for the rest of the movie. Mm-hmm. Which I think also, in a way, I think maybe as a little kid that also like boggled my mind to the point of fear almost, because it's like, as much as I always loved the original Star Wars trilogy, the Star Trek movies, Star Trek TV shows, all of that stuff. This was the first time it seemed real.
And well, yeah, there's a fantasy element to those things, but there's also like a terrestrial element to those things. This is pretty much like, the expansion of civilization into space and what that looks like.
And we have we don't really have a real tangible way of thinking about that.
Mm-hmm. No, but even like do you call it a shuttle port instead of an airport? I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll call it a shuttle port.
Sure.
Had the Sheridan Inn room in it, which would now be like
Howard Johnson's, but
there was Sheridan and Howard Johnson.
Oh,
there was a Sheridan? There was a Sheridan.
The Howard Johnson's Earthlight room. I wrote that.
Yeah, and the Sheridan
probably.
The Sheridan was with Floyd, the three women, and the Russian reporter.
Oh, and then he walked away, and
you
see the Howard Johnsons.
Okay.
Yep.
But it's like now when you go and it's probably a bank, right? That has that little VIP room or something.
Hotels have that little VIP room.
Some too. Now. But it's interesting because even like as Sarah saw the shuttle he was on, she was like, "That's like a modern airplane." That they didn't have
Pan Am
back then. But they didn't. The airplanes didn't look like that. They look like that now almost.
Yeah,
in
well, that's
first class sections. Yeah.
Yeah, true. I mean, and what was always on the poster kind of looked more like the Concorde. Like I always remember the poster as it was flying into the wheel. Yeah, it looked like more like a Concorde, which I don't think existed in 1968.
Oh man, all those like docking sequences.
Oh, the where they line up and they spin together.
Right.
Yeah.
And then for the shots from the inside of those are like so pre-Star Wars it hurts.
I know.
Right? Like it's like the Death Star, I mean,
the George Lucas like, I want one of that. I want that.
make me that model.
There was a comment here about, I wonder if George Lucas watched this and was like that's where the inspiration for Star Wars came.
Surely. I mean,
surely
like
the
probably that in American
right?
Fortress, or not American Fortress. The fuck is
Hidden
it called?
Fortress.
Hidden Fortress. Yeah.
Kurosawa meets Kubrick. I mean, for sure. Right.
American Fortress.
Fortress America is a fun
sounds
game.
like that would have like Dudikoff in it or something.
Oh hell yeah, it would. And America.
We need
Fortress.
a month of American Fortress movies.
Yeah, well,
Dudikoff and Chuck Norris team up finally.
Oh my god, you son of a bitch! Oh man, yeah, I'd watch that. Sure.
Hell yeah. I'll watch that right now. Make them as old men. I'd still watch it.
But I also liked, I'm a big fan of retro futuristic set design.
Yeah.
I love all of the stark white, interior, like the super clean, and
sterile. It's
sterile.
Very sterile environment with like red chairs.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, Jason, this is coming. It's Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's why I love the look of that movie. It's that same kind of concept, and I mean, Turnbull worked on both of them.
And then where the second movie, 2010, is more
gritty,
alien.
Yeah,
and it's almost like this this snake eating its tail situation, right? Because you've got Alien, when it came out, was definitely trying to make something that was not anti-2001, but more like a lived-in type of sci-fi, right? Where 2001 was very polished. This one was like the working man space, right?
Yeah, I mean, Alien followed Star Wars.
Yeah, and then you can definitely see where 2010 was kind of trying to capture that functional aspect of Alien in its ship, because it had to be built fast. Yeah, it was built for function. It was built to beat the Americans to the monolith, right?
Right.
So of course it doesn't have the precision and the cleanliness of the original Jupiter mission,
right?
The original Discovery. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about how perfect space look, those whites in the interior of the spaceport and of the Discovery are just so clean. I saw no grain. It's like I should have seen grain, but I didn't.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that's not even like a cleanup effort by whoever brought this forward, which is frowned upon these days, right? Removing grain or whatever. It's just not.
Yeah. No, it's not grain removal at all. It's just not there. It's just a beautiful restoration. Somebody had to pick all the hair and dirt out of whatever the best elements were, but no, it wasn't like a James Cameron hack job of smoothing things over with AI. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's probably 70 millimeter again.
Right. And that's
showing
the problem.
Yeah.
This is the problem sometimes with even seeing a movie like this in 70 millimeter on a huge screen at IMAX. I did, and it's gorgeous, but it's really gorgeous when the film elements are clean, right? Yeah. I mean, and that the print I saw, and I even commented this to our friend Dave, who's probably listening, is like it looked a little dirty to me in that Dawn of Man sequence. That's a very brightly lit sequence, and like there was, and it's also at the beginning of the reel, right? So there's more dirt, there's more hair, there's more, scratches in that reel than the rest of the movie, and it kind of like took me out of it. So even if you have the best possible presentation, the film elements still have to be in pretty good shape for you to experience like that full 70 millimeter effect. But that's kind of where these restorations are catching up, right? And we're able to put these films out on higher resolutions, the resolutions that more adequately represent a pristine 70 millimeter print. And we're going to get that with 2001: A Space Odyssey one day. Like this isn't. I hope that there's another digital format after 4K UHD. And that will probably be the last one. That will probably be the last one, because it will eventually surpass what's needed, right?
As far as I know, there's already 8K TVs out there. They're just super expensive. So
I think there are. Yeah.
Yep. Just the format of home video, or whatever you want to call it these days, needs to catch up to that. When I was watching this movie, like, Star Wars is always considered space opera, right?
Right. Yeah.
This is a fucking space ballet.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, right down to the fact that it uses sweet music from ballets in it.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's the first indication, right? But even like the way it moves, the way people move, the way the ships move, it's like very, it's very like it's like a slow dance.
Yeah. I mean, there's no movie.
There's coordination to it.
Yeah. There's no movie that's a sci-fi movie released since 1977 would spend the time that this movie does in the scene where Dave goes to retrieve the broken piece of the antenna so that they can look and see what's wrong with it. Like that is what, 10 minutes of film time of him taking the pod out, positioning the pod, doing the EVA, then getting to the antenna to pull that out, to go then back to the pod. Yeah, it's insane how but it's like watching a documentary of sorts, right? It's like we're at NASA Control Center watching them do this.
Especially with that constant breathing, which does also kind of allude almost to horror.
Yes.
If you attribute the breathing to Hal. Almost like,
well, I mean, it's certainly,
I know it's not him, but like
it certainly makes me think of what happens if we don't hear the next breath.
That too,
which in a sort of way does happen in 2010 when John Lithgow's favorite Russian guy, they're talking, and then he's launched away.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's terrifying because it happens so quickly.
That moment and the moment in 2001 when is it Frank?
Yeah.
When Frank gets let loose, and you don't really see what happens, right? You just see him floating through space with his hose
has been cut,
disconnected, or cut. It's like, man, like I can't think of. I think I messaged you guys, what a way to go, floating through space. But that's like, I've always said drowning is like the most terrifying way to die for me, because it's like attainable. Attainable is the wrong word, but it could happen.
Well, you can go and do it right now if you want.
I can go drown. I can't go float off in space.
You could in your own kitchen. Yeah.
Yes. But if space was where we lived and that was like a potential all the time, that is fucking terrifying.
I mean,
like,
it's just
zero control over anything.
Yeah. I mean, you cannot stop. Once you start floating away, you're never going to stop until you land on something or until you hit something. Or you have
a thruster or something.
Or you're gonna run out of air. That's
but I mean, there's that. I mean, there's like the sudden. I mean, it would be like suddenly having somebody put a bag over your head and hold it until you can't breathe anymore.
They say everyone dies alone. That is the loneliest death I can imagine, in the void of space. Right?
Yeah.
Right, because there's not even any fishies or sharks around you.
Right. Yeah. No fishies, no sharkies, no, I mean, yeah, it's like at least if you get trampled by a horse, the horse is there.
Yeah. There's a pretty impactful moment too, and I'm still trying to suss out what exactly it means, but we were talking about how Frank dies.
Yeah.
And Dave goes to retrieve him in the pod.
Yes.
And he grabs him with those little grabber thingies, and he's bringing him with back. The claw. And then you have the famous, I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave, when Dave's trying to get back.
Open the pod bay doors, yep.
Yeah, yeah. And he's like, I'll go back in through the emergency latch.
I'm afraid you'll find that quite difficult without your space helmet, Dave.
God, it's so fucking terrifying. Like
it is.
It's so flat. Like there's no emotion there.
It's like how we talk about like Michael Myers is a terrifying killer because he has no emotion or
he doesn't speak. He's just a white face. Yeah,
There's nothing there.
He's operating by some sort of rule book that we have no
insight
of.
Yeah,
there's a directive there that we have no comprehension of. Absolutely, but he's holding Frank, and he gets to the bay doors or the emergency doors, and he has to let him go.
Yeah.
There's some kind of humanity moment there that I can't quite wrap my fingers around because, your instinct is to bring that person home, right? To bring that home, to save them or to do something with them. But he has to let him go and throw him back out into space to save himself. I don't know how to describe it, but it's powerful.
And you watch him float away a little bit. Yeah, I mean, like you see him get further and further away. Not like the first time, but this time slow. It stings a little bit more this time.
I wish I could describe what I'm thinking about what's going on in Dave's head because he's letting go of a part of himself, I think, when he has to do that.
Oh, yeah, because once he gets back in, what's the next thing we see after he gets back on the ship? Cold fucking determination.
Right.
Like he is angry.
He's changed.
Yeah.
He's changed. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, oh, I'm going to now kill the advancement that we were given.
Right.
Like that's a whole new level of something it's not evolution, but it's something other than what we've seen up to this point.
Right. It's almost back to like human instinct or animal instinct in a way, like kill the predator or get rid of the threat. There's no thought in that either. It's just I need to do it.
I love the conversation between Dave and Frank in the pod.
When
they're discussing what they are going to have to do, right? And Frank's got it. Like he's pretty much like, look,
Frank is hero, man.
This is kind of an inevitability, but he's like, yeah, we got it. You're right. We've got to play it out and see. I've always been chilled by that. By knowing that Hal was reading their lips and that they just didn't think quite far enough to trick the
Hal kind of teases Dave about that.
Yeah, he does.
You prepared.
He's playing chess.
Yeah.
He's playing chess. I mean, we saw him. Hal already beat Frank in chess, right? And he's beating them again, but he doesn't.
You know who doesn't
he unfortunately doesn't have full control. Of everything on that ship. Right?
Well, you know what, who won't let Hal beat him at chess? Fucking Roy Scheider. So I ain't fucking playing chess with you.
I'm not going to play you. I can't lose if I don't play.
Yeah,
right.
But that's that tells you a lot about Hal too. Is that he could read their lips, but he still wouldn't respond to them when they were saying Hal moved the ship. Like he fucking knew they were about to talk shit about him. It wasn't that he caught him. He was prepared and a step ahead there.
You know what I love? I know we talked about how we're not totally bought into the reason for Hal going haywire.
At least from the sequel's perspective.
Right. But the fact that it's almost immediately after he deactivates Hal is when he gets the message, right?
Yeah.
And him having that knowledge at that moment, knowing the reason for Hal's malfunction in the sequel, would have made Dave and Hal back in simpatico. Hal would have had no more conflict, right?
I wonder about that. Because I feel like Hal was suppressing the message. At least that's the way I saw it.
I think he was programmed to. Yeah, I mean,
I knew they had to enter a certain space, right, to see it. Did they enter the space just then?
That's when they got the message. The message was timed to that. So that's when they were allowed to know. Yeah.
I just wasn't clear if they had just then, like if it was that kind of timing worked out, or if Hal was keeping them. Yeah,
I think it just happened that was chronologically because it's right after that where we have the Stargate sequence, the Jupiter to the Infinity. Yeah, yep.
This is by the way much better than Stargate. That just that Stargate scene is much better than the entirety of Stargate.
Stargate's one of those dumb movies that I enjoy, but
but you know what it did spawn though? It spawned
ancient alien shit.
But it spawned all those TV series that are beloved.
Ancient aliens.
Ley lines and all that stuff, yeah.
But no, I'm talking about the Stargate TV series and there's 3 or 4 of them or whatever, and those are
it gave MacGyver a job, you know.
That's true.
Because what's that guy's name?
Richard Dean Anderson.
Richard Dean Anderson. There it is.
There it is.
Gave him a job.
80s recall.
I worked with the guy. His name was Gary. I haven't thought about this guy in a long time. Worked with him at the video store, and he was a huge Stargate TV show fan, like massive Stargate TV show fan. Loved it. He would talk about it all the time.
Was that a Blockbuster?
That was a Blockbuster, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, Shane and I both worked with him. Good guy. I wonder what happened to him.
He's probably streaming Stargate right now.
Probably. He's probably probably writing fan fiction. Who knows?
Who knows? Hey, good for him if he is. Even if it's that weird /fiction stuff, go for it, man. Let the freak flag fly, man.
When they get all like sexy with it, you know? They call it dreary fan fiction for Harry Potter, where there's like this whole section of fan fiction where Draco Malfoy and Harry Potter are gay lovers.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I love it.
Dreary.
I mean, I first learned about it from Trekkies, where with Kirk and Spock and that sort of stuff. Yeah. Anyway,
Chuck missed all of that.
Yeah. Well, that is probably for the best. Anyway, but anyway, no. So I wanted to kind of ask you, because this is something else I kind of started thinking about after watching this. Because like I said, I think this is a movie that almost invites you to apply your own thinking, your own opinion, your own, conclusions to it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Now I'm just thinking from 2001 perspective, not with 2010 at the end, or, tacked on, as a sequel, because we do, I mean, and I do understand that there isn't a much more widely accepted, like what's going on here with Dave, but I don't know. I mean, like I kind of started thinking, it's like, what if Dave is not just transcending, or not just, kind of experiencing things from a different dimension or dimensional or physical plane or anything like that, but in a way I kind of think of Dave kind of entering an afterlife. Like I think he dies, or at least I think there's a read where you can say he dies.
It definitely lends itself. That idea lends itself to the idea of this being like a literal heaven and a very spiritual slant,
like a personal heaven.
Yeah, but also I think that it could not be mutual. It might not be mutually exclusive. Like what he experiences could truly be like a transcendence that we all experience in death, right? Like
Well,
maybe
you're kind of joining the collective consciousness.
right.
A part of you is still structuring something that you recognize.
That's always been my favorite interpretation of an afterlife, right? Is a collective consciousness. We all, no matter who we were on Earth, our energy goes back into a collective pool.
We return to the star stuff, you know.
Yeah. Dust and stars, right? Yeah.
Here's my thought on this, because as 2001 a standalone, right? We're just talking about as a standalone. There's the conflict of our own trying to advance ourselves via AI, and then the natural progression that is going to happen eventually, even if aided by
Outside force.
an outside force. Our own advancement, being the AI, betrayed us, because what should have been given to all humans was only given to Dave because our AI betrayed us and kept us from bringing that evolution back or giving it to everyone else. That's the way I see it from just a 2001 perspective. Obviously, that's blown up in the second movie. But
Well, I mean, we have three perspectives that are unique, yet at the same time will be unique to a fourth perspective or a fifth perspective, or whatever, as far as like what this movie is trying to show and say.
I just didn't know it was more cynical than Jason. That's weird.
That is a little weird. It's a little weird. I mean, you and I are getting all waxy, poetic-y.
Jason's like, let's join the consciousness and love one another. I like that the best.
It's all good, y'all.
It's like, oh, that guy is so fucking dead.
That clearly is the nicest way to see the ending, though, right?
Sure.
We will be given that collective heaven or whatever you want to call it, and that is kind of backed up by 2010 too, right? Like the way it ends, and that there's a second star or sun, which could be read as Jesus, the son of this, whatever you want to say.
Nazarene, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Star of Nazareth. Yeah.
Funny story.
Or is it the Star of Bethlehem? Star of Bethlehem.
Funny story
better than me, but yeah.
They named the star Lucifer.
No
really?
way.
Yeah.
The humans did?
Yes. It's called
in the third book.
In the third book, it's called.
Do they
Lucifer.
get all antichrist-y? I think it's no.
No,
I mean
humanity
means the light. I mean,
right. I mean, humanity has jumped forward. Like they're not. They have progressed.
They're no longer weighed down by mythological thoughts.
Well, they all witnessed the same thing. I mean, it's like how I mean, there was a scientific explanation for what happened.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Although,
but still, there's something.
They're hanging on to that idea.
There's still something
I'm sure
not
there's
understood behind it, though.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
and that something could be the presence of. It clearly is a higher being.
Well, yeah.
Right?
I mean, right,
and call it a god, call it whatever, right?
I do have to wonder, like, yeah. So I guess we should talk a little bit about 2010 now, because it is a very different movie, and I think it had to be. You can't. I mean, like, there's only been two Kubrick movies that have had a sequel. It was 2001 and The Shining.
The Shining, yeah.
And both of the sequels are very different movies.
Sure.
Than the Kubrick movie, because
they both followed the original author's vision.
Sure, but it was smart of the directors not to come in and say, well, I'm going to make my Kubrick film. You're not making your own Kubrick film. It was like, I mean, because if you even try to say that, you're instantaneously going to turn everybody against you.
I argue that Flanagan is very reverential.
He was close.
Though.
Well, yeah, he is
reverential.
He is closer, but at the same time, there is a scale, and there is an aspect of that movie of Dr. Sleep that is definitely not something you'd see in a Kubrick movie.
I mean, the book is so vastly different that I don't even know if you could, but I mean, that's a fair thing to say.
I mean, like the whole idea of like, there's a road trip element to it, right? or at least there's an element of things happening in different places that then converge onto the
That's all the
Overlook.
book.
But at the same time, it's like you're not going
to when Danny goes back to the Overlook in Doctor Sleep, you cannot help but have the iconography that was given to us by the original.
And they even make it look the same. They don't even make it look different. So
he walked a tightrope that I think worked really well.
Sure. But like I'm just talking about like the structure of the movie is not what I would have expected a Kubrick movie to do.
Right.
And the same thing goes for 2010. 2010 has a script, whereas 2001 almost seems like it doesn't. Mm-hmm. Like there is a script, obviously, but there's so much more dialogue. Like the way 2010 begins with kind of that snarky competition between Floyd and the Russian guy who comes it's like, oh, you got problems.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of MacGyver, that was MacGyver's buddy.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
That actor. Yeah.
And but like that, just that opening scene has almost more dialogue than almost all of 2001. I mean, like
Dana Elkar.
Yeah.
Elkar. Dmitry Moisevich.
That stuff is really intriguing, and the fact that it's a Russian and American speaking in the 80s, like the first time you would have seen this would have been even more so intriguing, right?
Well, and also, it does kind of like when you bring that up, it makes me think also, it's like there's a little Doctor Strangelove here.
So he wasn't doing a Kubrick movie, but he was.
But he kind of was. Yeah. I mean, like, but like,
yeah.
I mean, but there is a feeling there where there is I'm supposed to hate you, but at the same time, we're just kind of playing the same. We're kind of playing the same game here, everybody. It's like there's we've got our interest, you've got your interest, and that's all the difference here.
Right. Yeah. And just to set like a quick baseline, the Russians are going to get to the Discover ship a year before the Americans will. But the Russians' problem is they don't have the knowledge of how or the ship that the Americans do.
Right.
So the Russian is saying, hey, why don't we work together? We'll bring some of you on our ship. And it's a cool little cat and mouse like conversation until Roy Schneider is like, hey, I'm granting you extra time here because
he says, have you looked at the orbit of the Discovery?
Right.
And so he's like, what do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, and that means as he finds out, Floyd finds out that we're not going to get there in time.
Right.
Yeah.
We need to catch a ride with the Russians, which is, for the time and even today, knowing the history, being the age that I am, like really intriguing stuff.
Oh yeah,
they have to pair together to tackle.
It's almost unheard of that you would have seen an American movie made during this time period where the Americans had to be subservient to the Russians, right?
Yeah, but also treat the Russians as like they're just normal guys from they're under a different flag.
Well, that's the beautiful part of that scene with Haywood
Lithgow.
Floyd. I'm thinking when he's woken up, right? He's the only one of the three Americans that's woken up, and he's basically got to he's in the den of wolves, if you will. But he's a man of science. He's like, look, none of this bullshit that's happening. None of our differences matter. Like, what's the science? Let's talk about the science. Like, give me the answers to your calculations. Like, let's cut through the bullshit, right? And I gotta love it, right? He's just like, we have a common goal here,
right?
And we've got to work fast.
Yeah, and I do like that there is a little bit of hinting at, because we do know that Floyd sent the Discovery 1 on that mission to intercept or to study the larger monolith that was orbiting Jupiter.
Right, because the small monolith on the moon sent a signal to the larger monolith on Jupiter,
and they don't know why. Right.
Yeah.
And they don't know why. So it's like, we need to send this out there, but we can't tell anybody that. And then when it failed, he had to be the fall guy.
Yep.
Which kind of makes sense, right? Like assuming that nothing goes wrong, he comes out, smelling like a rose. But if it doesn't go right, he has to take the fall because for all anybody knows, he was the one who set up the mission, right? And not why, just that he did. And so we do get the scene where he's like talking to his replacement at that point.
Yep.
Anyway, you were going to say, Chuck, go ahead.
This a short point. I don't want to derail the conversation, but it's vastly interesting to me that in 1968, an epidemic or something that could take over the whole world with illness is used to detract from what's really happening, which is kind of wild. Sorry, we don't have to talk about that, but it struck me when I saw. I'm like, damn. Yeah. Like, imagine if COVID was that. But
right. But so like basically he's the one who's got to convince the president to let these guys, and he talks about having like a reactionary president that's like, you get the impression from that it's like this motherfucker wants to bomb Russia. Right. It's like this is going to be like, it's going to be
Cold War politics, man.
Thin ice.
He also said that him being reactionary made him easy to manipulate, essentially. Like,
which is true.
Which is so
fantastic. Yeah. I mean, Peter Hyams knew what he was doing here.
He sounds like Morgan Freeman a lot when he's talking.
He does,
yeah. In this movie, I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah. So basically, so they get up there because, the idea is we need to send Chandra, who created the HAL 9000 thing back in 1992 or whenever it was that they say he went online. And they're going to send the engineer who's designing the Discovery 2. Yeah. Because he would know more about the Discovery 1 than anybody else.
Right.
And that is John Lithgow.
He's fantastic.
Oh my God, he's so
and
good.
Balaban are both wonderful, aren't they? I just love them.
Everybody in this movie is fantastic.
Yes.
And one thing I was gonna say, and
there's this really charming behind the scenes like featurette on the physical copy of this, the DVD or Blu-ray. It's like one of those little. You remember when they used to do those little sneak preview peeks behind the scenes,
Yeah.
And it's about 9-10 minutes long, and it's got interviews with like John Lithgow and a couple other people. It's introduced by Arthur C. Clarke, and he's still calling it Odyssey 2. They hadn't even settled on the title yet. And it's just super charming. But John Lithgow is like, he was gushing over the Russian actors in this. He was like, "Oh my God, it was so these actors that they found were so wonderful, and they brought so much authenticity, and they were really incredible to play off of." And then of course, like you hear this a lot in sci-fi movies with wonderful sets, but they're like, he couldn't stop talking about the sets in Helen Mirren too. She was like, it really makes your job easy when you go to work and you feel like you're in the place that you're supposed to be as your character.
Right, you're not acting so much as you are just there.
It helps
existing
you so much to like find the place you need to be in.
That's super cool. I'll have to
it's really neat.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah,
you would like it a lot, Jeff. You like the vintage stuff like that.
Yeah,
I would hate it.
Yeah.
Well, Chuck, you check
might
it out
like
too,
it
buddy.
as well, but Jeff is Mr. like at the movies guy,
Oh man, I love that shit, man. Anyway, it's just it's a window into a time that I was alive for that I'm now old enough to understand.
Yeah, and they do it. They show you a little bit of like the special effects and how they were pulled off. It's a really like for 9 minutes, it really packs in a lot.
Nice.
Yeah.
So those are the three Americans. You got the Roy Scheider, you got the John Lithgow, and you got the Bob Balaban. The Russian crew is Helen Mirren, Peter Parker's landlord,
Yeah.
the musician lady,
a much larger group are the Russians, right?
Yeah, they're like twice as.
they're
Yeah, it's like
they're
six,
running the ship. So
yeah, there's
quite
6
a
or
few
7 of them. Yeah,
Yeah, they're all Russian actors except for
Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you do have some other character, like you have Madeline Smith who plays Floyd's wife. Now, if I understand correctly, that was his second wife, right? Is that what he
Yes.
tells Helen Mirren?
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I
His
thought.
wife died, and his daughter, who is in the first movie, is
Yes.
like 17 and in college now, or something,
something like that. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
and
She had a short career, but she had some real bangers.
there's one I want to talk about, Jason.
I know you want to do Urban Cowboy.
I do.
That was her first movie.
That's a good one.
Yeah. But she was great in The Caller. That was one I watched for the first time not that long ago. Man, that's a good movie.
It's very good.
But yeah, so the movie kicks off with the supposed last transmission from Bowman, which is "My God, it's full of stars," which does kind of make sense because we did see it, but it's a Mandela effect.
It is a Mandela effect.
It's not set in the first movie.
It's a crazy one. I actually Googled it, and it of course took me to the subreddit for Mandela effect, and there's a whole thing on it where people just swear up and down that it was in the original, and it wasn't. We all know it wasn't.
Well, I can tell you,
it feels like it was.
I can tell you why it's not in the original, and this is something I kind of teased in your direction, Jason, last night. This movie is so much more human than the first one. And it's not that I think it's necessarily Peter Hyams being a better director towards actors than Stanley Kubrick or anything like that. Is that Stanley Kubrick, there's not room for humanity in the story he wants to tell. This movie has to entirely be humanity.
Humans are small.
Yes.
2001.
Yes.
Right? The unknown it has to take center stage. This higher elevated being, right? But in this, yes, you're absolutely right. Like the humanity of the movie is everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And even the way that Keir Dullea says, "My God, it's full of stars," that is not something Stanley Kubrick would have beaten him senseless if he'd have said anything like that in 2001. You know I'm right, Jason.
He probably he would packed him away.
I don't know.
In a warehouse in a box. He would have put him in there.
I don't know. You're right.
You don't know. You're right.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
but
Chuck.
But there is, like, just to point out a distinction here is, like, the antagonist in the first movie is an AI, right? In this movie, it's people dealing with people, like the Soviets and the Americans. It's a different kind of trust earning, and one that isn't built on computation so much, right?
Like, yeah, because 2001 begins, they already trust Hal implicitly. Like it is, I mean, this
Hal
thing
doesn't
never
trust them because of what it's learned too.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
and because that was the big thing about what they were talking about in the pod, right? Which was there's never been a 9,000 unit that's been broken. So it's yeah, I mean, but like, yeah, this movie is the antagonist is pretty much you wake up with them every morning on this mission.
Yes.
You know, and so yeah, it does become far more, but like there is something about like John Lithgow and Maxim, the Russian guy who becomes his friend. It's like their friendship. I love the scene when they're trying to get onto the Discovery, and it's like really just them, like the Russian guy has every opportunity to bash on the American guy, and he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. But he's playful.
Yes,
right. He keeps him. He doesn't patronize Lithgow, but he also like tries to keep things light. Right.
Yes.
It's like the perfect thing to do. Really?
Well, yeah, because like I was
he
thinking
prevents a cool demeanor. He doesn't
yes,
escalate the stress.
yes.
Right?
In fact, if anything, he's letting it. He's venting the stress.
Yeah. For sure.
I was thinking about this.
He gives them like a perfect distraction.
Yeah. And because I was thinking about it's like, Floyd is constantly saying to Kurnow, which is Lithgow, just look at the center of the discovery as it's spinning. Just stay, just that's the part that's not moving. And it's like, that could be true. But am I going to pay attention to the guy who is, am I going to be paying attention to the guy who's talking in my ear or that I can look into his eyes?
Right.
And I'm probably going to go with Maxim, who's right there in front of me, who's talking to me and making and cracking a joke.
Right.
And it's like you hear times where Floyd is still giving him things to think about while the guy is still just talking to him it's a whole. Oh, I love that relationship. The two of them.
Their buddy relationship is awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And it's sad when Maxim gets fucking yeeted out of the solar system,
which you didn't expect either, right? Like Maxim.
I mean, we do know that there was the attack on the probe, but we didn't expect for it to happen when you're flying over the monolith,
right? And even early, I mean, like if you're looking at the movie as a whole, like Lithgow was going to die.
Oh, you
right?
thought,
like,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you,
Maxim had the head on his shoulders and
yeah, it's like, also though, you could almost look at it and say, well, I don't know if I would have expected anyone to die, but when somebody dies, holy shit, it's a jump scare.
Interesting. I expected everyone to die. Like, honestly.
Well, conceivably, if a second sun showed up where Jupiter is, we all die. Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
fair enough.
This movie's not nearly as ruthless.
Sure.
As 2001.
It's not as big a sun, Jeff. And it's far away.
Okay. It's not far enough.
But it's not, this movie's not nearly as ruthless to its characters. Right.
That's true. I mean, again, it's this more human movie. It cares about the people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like I mean, that's interesting too. Like, cause even the guys that die in the first one, I know we're talking about 2010.
No, that's fine.
Like you only care that a character died. You don't really know, like, you don't know enough about him to really feel the emotional weight.
There's a barrier there. Yeah. I mean, the only thing you can say is like what Jason was saying, that Frank Poole was totally like in the know of what needs to happen. You think of him almost as the expected hero of the movie, right? Like he does come off, whereas Dave comes off a lot more cold and scientific. Frank feels a little bit more personable.
Dave also, though, has a more enlightened understanding of what Hal is.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's not, he even says, I'm not sure how Hal will take it if we try to take him offline, right? He's concerned that Hal might be beyond them.
Right.
But so let's talk a little bit about what's the guy's name who gets ejected back to Earth in a like a star or something.
Well, Maxim is just shot out of the solar system.
Right. He's just like, he's like shot back to Earth.
Yeah. Elliot Baskin. Yeah.
No. So Dave is going back to Earth from.
Well, that happens after.
Right after Maxim
it's the same.
Bounced out.
He gets bounced, and then like the fireball goes towards Earth, and it's almost as if Dave knocked him out of the way to go to Earth.
Right.
So it could have been an accident. It may not have been a murder of Maxim Brelovsky, but certainly both things happened at the same time.
I don't really like Dave going back and visiting his wife.
That's an Arthur C. Clarke thing, I think.
I don't like it either.
It just felt very I don't know.
I think that's Arthur C. Clarke. I think it's an Arthur C. Clarke thing, basically saying, hey, I know what's about to happen to me, And my last piece of humanity is to say goodbye to my loved ones that I didn't get to before, which, I mean, argue it. However, I'm fine either if it's there or not. Again, it feels like another horror moment. Like there, all of the droning soundtrack stuff that's in both of these movies makes me scared.
Yeah. And it's no surprise to me that it was a surprise to me. I guess it shouldn't have been a surprise, but I was yesterday years old when I realized that James Horner borrowed some of the ballet suite music from 2001 for the opening scoring of Aliens, right? That sort of isolated symphonic, like drone music almost, right? Like, I mean, there's definitely moments in both of these movies in the sound design that is meant to like make you feel a little uneasy, like a lot uneasy, to make you feel the vastness of this thing we don't understand, right?
Yeah.
How scary that is to really truly just be completely oblivious to what it is you're encountering.
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to be we're supposed to be the smart people, right? What happens when we are presented with something we don't understand? We don't handle it well.
And it speaks to how unevolved we are.
Yeah.
Right? And how far we have to go as a species if we can manage to keep ourselves alive.
Yeah. Oh boy.
There's that old familiar cynicism.
Well, no, you're not wrong, because in 1983, none of us understood how constantly close we were to bombs falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost amazing that we survived it, it's like most of our lives were lived in unknowing absolute dread that it could happen.
So Jason mentioned this, but my biggest problem with this movie is the way that Dave's evolution is portrayed. If that is Dave and he is not that's what's unclear about it, because he's like, I know what Dave felt. I know you're my wife, or we're my wife, or however he says it on the TV, which is ridiculous in and of itself. But how is that evolution so fast and so he can just go from monolith to Earth in a fucking starbeam? Is that our future? There's nothing there that really, there's no connective tissue to what we are as humans now to what this is portraying, right?
Yeah.
You can see it in 2001, from touching the monolith as a man-ape or whatever to the understanding of tools. This is now all of a sudden you can shoot to Earth from space. I don't like it, even a little.
It's just, I mean, it's kind of one of those weird plot things where you're dealing with an entity that has no rules, right? No established rules. So when it does something kind of hokey, it feels like it can get away with it, but it feels a little hokey. It's like, well, why are you allowed? I understand why you're allowed to warn the ship, right? The Russian crew to get out in 2 days, right? That makes sense if this is if this higher being is interested in
life
and
okay,
and evolution and and all of that.
And wanting the evolution to happen without harm, almost as if that would be Dave's final humanity, right?
Right. There's a benevolence there
But you're saying
that rings true. But Dave like traveling all the way back to Earth to like talk to his his wife and say goodbye is just it feels a little, I don't know. It just feels like it diminishes, I think, in some ways the magnificence of this evolution. Right.
But is that our evolution then?
I don't know.
Is our evolution to be able to do that, or is that the entity?
I
it doesn't
wonder
even
if
matter
it's.
But I want to know what the evolution
But if
is.
everyone is going to transcend, why does it even matter that he has that conversation?
Well, it doesn't really. I mean,
but I want to know what the evolution is.
It just feels so like so minuscule in the grand scheme of what's going to happen over the next generation.
He'll be able to say hi to her.
Well, when you put it
dying.
like that, when you put it like being minuscule like that, right? I mean, in a way, isn't that the way most people think of? Like, it's not the way people think of it, but it could be an outsider's point of view of how somebody has faith in something. It feels more minuscule than you're really like what you're prescribing the all-powerful being as having. Seems like to me you're just prescribing magical powers that can affect you and only you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
like
if I was to sit there and say everything I've gotten came from praying to God about, whatever, you could sit there and say, well, why would God care about you over the dying, hundreds of millions that are hungry across the world or whatever, it's that magical thinking that sometimes people sometimes people not have to have, but jump to have for their religious beliefs to work.
Yeah.
And so in a way, I kind of feel like this movie is kind of having it both ways, where it's like there's an evolution, but it's also we're treating Dave almost like a godlike being, or the monolith has consumed Dave's essence as a godlike being. It took that essence, and now Dave is fighting to say a goodbye or something, when he should have just saved that for the ship. He could have just said, take those two scenes out, and then you could have Dave saying, I'm using the last of who I was for you and Hal to understand. We got to go. You got to go.
It's almost like what you would prescribe to like Catholicism, where they believe in like an apparition or an appearance of
the Holy Ghost,
of the Blessed Virgin Mary, or like appearing to children in Portugal and stuff like that, right? Like it's a little bit akin to that, I think. But anyway,
which I think
Chuck, you've got something on your brain.
Yeah, I think you got something
on your brain. What do you got?
Sorry, I'm comparing this movie to Sunshine in my brain right now.
Okay.
Where in Sunshine, we know what's at stake for the human race.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The only thing we know in this movie is what's at stake for the 9 people on the 2 ships. And I think that's a feeling. Like, we should more know what the evolution is, what's at stake for humanity, not just these people on the ship. Whereas in Sunshine, you're like, it doesn't matter what happens to these 9 people. I'm just saying 9 because I can't remember.
It's 8 or 9.
What really matters is that we're saving the world, right? There's a feeling in this movie, I think, in that respect. Like, I want to know what the evolution is, and I want to know if the people don't get away from Io and the what's the other one called? I can't remember.
Europa, Io, and Ganymede are the big planets that.
Will they impede evolution if they don't get away, or will they just die?
Yeah.
Like there's not enough meat on the bone.
I always take it if they don't get away, they die.
Yeah.
That's not enough. The stakes aren't high enough there.
Sure, because it's just 8 or 9 of them, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they don't matter.
Yeah,
from a utilitarian aspect, you are correct, Chuck. It is kind of the anti-Sunshine in that regard. But I think that what Dave represents it's maybe because he's such a young version of whatever we are evolving to, there is still enough of his humanity intact that he's a bridge between whatever is next and in humanity, and he wants to get off onto the best. He wants everyone to get off on the best foot, right? Like he's trying to he's been where they've been. He's been where they've been. Their
humanity to each other matters, in escaping together.
And I think it's like sort of the symbolism of, yes, the fact that there are two countries at odds, right? And this could be the first true step towards peace. Did I just quote Star Trek 6?
Well, hey, you could do worse. No, here's okay. So what Dave really kind of is in 2010 is he's a herald. He's a herald of the next step. And I guess in a much more literal sense, he is. I mean, he does tell his wife that something wonderful is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And he tells Hal that too. But his final scene with Hal, just the two of them, as the others are using the Discovery to basically get away, and this is the end of Hal, sort of. We'll come back around to that later. It's a nice scene where the two of them are talking one last time. But again, when he shows himself to Roy Scheider, holy shit, that's scary too. It's like there's so much scary in these movies. Mm-hmm. He goes through every iteration of himself. If I were Floyd, I'd be like, fuck this science. I don't want to go in that room and see what's waiting for me. I'll just take my chances. But in later books, Bowman and Hal do merge into a singular being. Very, very Star Trek motion picture-y finale.
You know what else vibes I got based on the ending of this movie? The Watchmen.
Yes. The celestial event that curates peace.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Exactly right. Yep. Something bigger than all of us that dwarfs us in understanding. So we should stop our pettiness, and
which is funny because what happens in Contact is the exact opposite.
It's
It's the anti 2001-10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
No.
Well, Contact's a perfect example of when bureaucracy takes over.
Right. Yeah. Our greatest evolutionary trait.
Yeah. Oh God. The red tape.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Chuck, I am curious to hear what you think. I mean, despite some beef, I still think 2010 is underrated in the grand scheme of things. That I do think it is an interesting movie. It is not a failure, in my opinion, in terms of a sequel to a movie that you couldn't imagine there being a sequel to. But yeah, I mean, I still think it is a very interesting and thought-provoking movie.
I liked it. It is thought-provoking. I do think that the stakes are either not well enough fleshed out or weighty enough.
That's fair.
For me, like I'd like to know more of what's at stake or have more at stake. But I did care about the people in the ships. I did want them to survive. But yeah,
the arrow breaking scene certainly had some stakes to it. That was awesome.
Arrow breaking.
The scene where they have to.
Oh yeah. That's before they even know what is at stake, though.
Yeah. They have to. I know, but it's super tense, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. There's a lot to like about how this movie looks and feels, and the performances are pretty much awesome. Like,
I think this movie is a better performed movie while 2001 has everything else, like has the check boxes and every other box.
Yeah, it almost felt like 2001 was like Kubrick told everyone to dumb it down a little bit in the emotional.
There's a
scale.
flatness to it.
There's a flat, yeah. It's very scientific. It's very almost like.
It's kind of like where Yorgos Lanthimos cribbed his style.
Yeah, there's a detachment from the humanity. Yeah. It's in a lot of ways it is what Roddenberry wanted for Star Trek, there to be that detachment of emotion, which just not anytime soon that's just not going to work for humanity.
But it's an interesting
thing of what we would be like in that situation.
But there's a big difference, obviously, between 2001 and 2010 in that, right? Because we hadn't experienced this new monolith yet, right? Yeah. So it changes. It changed humanity even in over those 9 years to the point where there was like maybe a sense of us grasping beyond the pragmatic again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't know. This is just a way to interpret it.
Yeah, I can see
that. I think, I mean, like while 2010 is much more straightforward in what it wants to convey, I still go back to, I think as a whole, both of these movies, you're allowed to kind of have whatever thought. I mean, like, I almost think of 2001 as almost like, from a viewer's perspective, you get into stream of consciousness. Now the movie isn't, but the viewers do, and you almost kind of transcend into it, to where your thoughts do scatter a little bit, but it's because the movie is guiding you to let yourself think.
Yeah, it allows you to meditate on what you are experiencing.
Yeah.
It's transcendent cinema. Is it really, like it's almost like maybe the first slow cinema.
Yeah. Could you imagine that movie being made today and what people would say? I mean, it would be insane. It would be like if it was made after 1977. The sci-fi is broken into two eras: before 1977 and after 1977. And this movie was the great achievement in like hard sci-fi filmmaking to this day. But Star Wars certainly changed everything to the point where it's like you can't have 2010 without there being more going on the frame,
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars definitely changed the game. You had what was 2001? 1967? Eight. And then you had Solaris the same year, like the Russian counterpart of 2001. And then, Star Wars was like, fuck that meditative shit. Let's get pew pew guns and laser swords.
The last true. This might be somewhat controversial.
Let's go back to our space comic roots.
Yeah,
I mean,
Flash Gordon. Yeah, some Flash Gordon business. Yeah, it's this might be somewhat controversial, but I think we talked about the last true sci-fi movie before Star Wars, Logan's Run.
Oh yeah.
Now there is action in that, but the concepts are so very sci-fi whereas the concepts in Star Wars is the sci-fi takes the back seat to the hero's journey.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about that. Yeah.
But anyway, one last thing I had, and I wish I had like 3 more hours to really kind of better put this together before we got together. But have you guys ever read or looked into or seen anything about Jack Kirby's 2001 Marvel comic?
Nope.
I have not.
Look up that shit. It is fucking bonkers, and it is so weird and so perfect for Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby had some way out there ideas, and all of them were encapsulated in 10 issues of the weirdest like property that Marvel ever picked up to try to make a series out of.
Oh dang, it looks awesome.
It is, but it is weird, man.
The ultimate trip becomes the ultimate illustrated adventure.
Yeah, it is It's so weird. But there's one element of that series that still exists today in Marvel Comics. It was where the beginning of a character that he called Mr. Machine, but we all know better as Machine Man. He started in 2001 and he is still around. Aaron Stack.
That's pretty wild.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
I kind of want to get a hold of this now. It looks pretty cool.
some of those issues are a little expensive. I've got issues 1 and 10, but once upon a time when I was a little kid, I had issues 1 and 2. My little kid brain could not comprehend it whatsoever. That is one
like something Alan Moore would write. You know?
Yes, it is. I would say I bet Alan Moore has done bloodlettings over an issue of 2001.
Yeah.
I mean, just to try to conjure up a new story of some sort. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's
blood
either him.
Sacrifices. Is that what
Yeah. It's either him or the other warlock in comics, Grant Morrison.
Oh yeah.
They may have also done something like that. For one of them have done something over an issue of Jack Kirby's 2010.
The warlocks of comics. That's funny.
Another random
dude. Grant Morrison, just like some of his stuff is just over my head, man.
Yeah.
He wrote this novel called Luda that came out a few years ago. That is just impenetrable. Like it is.
Well, try Final Crisis someday, and then good luck.
Hickman is kind of like that sometimes too.
He can be, yeah.
He's accessible a lot, but sometimes you're like, what the fuck is going on with
Hickman comes more from the Alan Moore genealogy, I would say, than the Grant Morrison. But yeah.
I've read all three, and sometimes just difficult.
Yeah.
One other thing, and this is just a random note. There's whatever from the score in this movie. The first note of what would be considered the monolith moment in the first one, when you get that evil. Like you think something.
Oh, the brown note. Yeah, the brown note.
The brown note. Yeah, I think "Beat It" is gonna start every fucking time by Michael Jackson.
Hilarious.
It's like, bong, and I'm like, oh shit, here we go, Michael. Random aside. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I guess we should say real quick. Also, Sprach Zarathustra.
Thank you.
That's the name of the.
Yeah. I could never conjure that out of my my vocal cords.
Have you ever actually heard it live?
I have, actually, not that long ago. I went at the ISO.
Yeah, I went to a whole it was a whole sci-fi music thing. My Aunt Dorothy and I went, and it was awesome.
The full piece it's really not that long either. I was kind of surprised by how
it's a portion of a whole suite. Yeah.
Oh, well, they did the whole suite when I went.
Oh no, I didn't hear the whole suite. I just heard the.
Yeah, they did the whole suite when I went, and I was surprised because it starts that way.
Yeah.
It starts with it, and then you never hear it again for the last 20 minutes or whatever. Yeah.
It's I believe it is about spring. Is it? Is it from the?
I have no idea, but I do know that.
Oh no, it's the initial fanfare titled "Sunrise." That's the piece that is used there.
Ooh.
I do know that the jazz artist Diodato did a real swinging version of it.
Yeah,
that was used in the I think it was the opening sequence of Being There with Peter Sellers.
Nice.
It's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yep.
Is it anything like the disco version of the Star Wars theme?
It kind of is, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, it has some of those vibes for sure. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, Chuck, I know the jury's still out, but I like sci-fi.
I'm decided.
But Chuck, I do one that I wrote about on B Movie Enema recently that I do think both of you very much like. If you haven't seen it, it's The Quiet Earth.
It keeps popping up now in my suggestions on my Google TV, and I need to check it out.
Yeah, it's so good, so good.
Look, Jeff. I can see you're very upset about this, but I'll keep watching sci-fi until I decide.
Hey, Chuck. Take a stress pill and go think about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Go think it over.
Go think about it. Go think. It's like what Hal from South Philly or something. Hey, go think about it.
Hey,
Or,
take a pill and forget
compass.
about it.
Think about it.
That would be Sal, not Hal.
Sal. Yeah.
Sal Capistrano. Forget about it.
By the way, I do like that. I do like that both Hal and Sal, individually, separate from one another, asked it when Chandra was talking about deactivating
If
them,
they
just
dream?
if they would dream. Yeah, and I'm like, hey, and if they dream, is it going to be of electric sheep?
Oh, well, I like
That was the first thing that went in
I
my
like that
head.
Chandra's answer changes.
Yes,
I like
it
what
does.
Balaban says. Maybe you'll dream of Hal like I do. It's like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah. Well, I also like that he does provide a lot of humanity to Sal by saying, well, all higher beings, that can, of course you will. Yeah, that was a very nice sentiment too. It's, it would have been very easy to make Chandra a very weird character in terms of how much more he seems to get along with these artificial
He
intelligences.
also could have been a bad guy.
He could have been a bad guy, but Balaban is so earnest in this that it's like, he's a great guy.
He's almost like the more evolved humanist, right?
Yeah,
Because he understands the weight of these creations and what they may truly mean. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I've got nothing else. What do you guys have?
Man,
I think we did it.
If I'm ever experiencing an arrow breaking event, I want to experience it with that hot Russian.
Yeah, cuddle up with a nice little Eastern European lady.
Yeah, because man, yeah.
She had short hair and everything just for Jason.
She was like when Jason pointed out that she was the much more like traditional Eastern European. I was like, yes, she was.
Yeah. I mean, between Helen Mirren and her.
That ship is doing fine. That ship is doing fine over there.
I would be a whole mess of like awkwardness.
Jason would have enough fuel to thrust those ships home.
Thrust those ships home.
You can get both of them home.
Put your hips into it. Oh my!
Good Lord!
Yep. That's how we're going to end this special.
Yeah, we just dumbed up 2001 and 2010 real hard there. Great. So I guess I'm going to talk about what's next week, huh?
Yeah. What's next week, huh?
So next week is September. You guys know that?
Wow.
No.
I know, right?
Time flies.
Time flies. Time flies when you're evolving into a higher being.
Yeah.
Next month, a listener of ours over on the YouTubes, we'll talk a little bit more about this next time, but made a suggestion to us and said, guys, I've got an idea for some movies for you to cover. And actually he hit us up on Instagram. So, go over to
to the gram.
Go over to the IG. Yeah, to the grams.
Yeah.
Go over to the grams. And anyway, he recommended to us 4 movies from his childhood. And I think a lot of this came from the fact that we talked about Iron Giant earlier in the year, or at the end of last year, rather. And he was like, here's 4 movies I used to watch that probably messed me up as a kid. And I'm like, that sounds great. We're going to put them in September. So that's what we've got. And we're going to start things off with Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Get a little Bowie.
Are we doing these
from David Bowman to David Bowie?
No.
Sorry.
How do we determine the order?
I just marked them down. I think I finished with Legend because that's a good, like, devil shit is a good way to enter into October a week later.
Shit. I like that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, so Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, Neverending Story, Legend. Those are the 4 movies.
A little bit of quicksand for that ass.
A little bit of quicksand for that ass. Better thrust that all the way home.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
some of these I've not seen in a long time. This will be fun.
2 Labyrinth and Dark Crystal I saw at the drive-in one night, not that long ago. So yeah, that was good. Anyway, but September 4th, Labyrinth. That is next Wednesday. Go to filmseizure.com, find all of that good stuff. And when you you can go there and find all the places that you can also subscribe to get the podcast delivered to you every Wednesday morning. Then next Monday on Monster Mondays, same place, filmseizure.com, the official countdown to my 300th episode begins. And I'm
starting that at 200?
It's 296, episode number 296. This is one Jason knows. I'm talking about The Void.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I figured get a little Lovecraftian,
little cosmic,
little cosmic monstery business.
Yeah.
So that will be all the same places. Filmseizure.com. You can also go and check out our social media. All that stuff can be found there. This upcoming weekend, my website bmovieanima.com. Friday morning, I have a review of John Carpenter's The Ward, a movie I didn't think I was going to like. Turned out I liked it quite a bit.
I mean, it's John Carpenter.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I knew it was his last movie, and it was one I had never heard of until I saw it was his last movie.
I saw it in the theater, and I don't remember loving it, but I'd like to revisit it.
I liked it. And then on Saturday, the 20th episode of season 5 of B Movie Anima, the series, The Louisiana Hussy.
You
really know how to pick them?
I do.
He's just shaking his head over there.
Yes.
Anyway,
pretty proud of himself.
Yeah, it's a pretty good movie. It's a pretty good flick for a late 50s exploitation movie. All right, so so that's it. Until next week when we get into Mr. Keith Pauly's favorite childhood movies. I'm Jeff 9000.
I'm Chuck Moore.
I'm Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to a very special episode of Film Seizure.
Attempt no landings here.